Hi guys, welcome to my channel. First off, I need to say the plumber is here today and it is very loud. So if you hear like that's where you're gonna get this sound from. He's trying to fix what Mercury retrograde has broken for me, which is every sink in my house. All of them. Stop draining. All together. All at once. Awesome! Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to my channel. I am a professional psychic activator, author, and historical medium or historical channeler. So I do a lot of fun stuff in this space and I'm so happy you're here with me. And today we have a super fun video that I'm actually really excited about. We are going to dive in and talk about my top 5 fiction book picks, or fiction book recommendations rather, to help you activate your psychic abilities or help you to expand upon your psychic abilities. My number one tip, and I have worked with people for a long time helping them expand and access their psychic abilities. When it comes to your psychic ability journey or your spiritual journey, my number one tip that I give people is if you'd like to be more magical, read fiction books. That is genuinely going to be massively helpful for you in a way you can't even imagine. They're incredibly activating and incredibly powerful. And I know that might sound silly, but just on a very base level, fiction books reactivate your imagination. Just on the very bottom level of that. And anything that reactivates your imagination is going to start reactivating your connection to your psychic and spiritual abilities. Your imagination is a root point of that. Your imagination is powerful. It is not just some pretend, fake, silly thing that we use when we're little kids. It's actually something that is incredibly rooted in a lot of real magic. And one of the main blocks I pull for people when they're trying to activate their psychic abilities is the block that your imagination is fake or pretend. So if you'd like to work on pulling that for yourself, reading fiction books is going to very deeply help with that. And that's just that's like our very starting level. Oh, I almost forgot. Look at my shirt that I wore because we're doing this video. Isn't he cute? He's a bunny with a book. Oh, I am drinking coffee during this video today, so who knows how much overcaffeinated Emily will come out. If you've seen a previous video, you understand that happens. Okay. So in order to understand this concept of fiction being really impactful for our reality, for expanding your psychic abilities, a couple things you need to understand. One is that everything exists in energetic reality. Genuinely, everything exists in energetic reality. And what that means is that everything that has ever been fictional also exists out there somewhere in the universe, whether that person actively channeled that being in, or if the idea was given to them in some other way, but it's everything exists. And there's a whole bunch of quantum theory that goes into this as well. I'm not a scientist. I'm a spiritualist, so we're talking more on that sort of things, but it's really important for you to know that everything does in fact exist out there in energetic reality, which means that when you are reading and digesting different material throughout your day-to-day life, some of that might not be a great reassurance, but it can also be really powerful and really reassuring to understand, okay, if these characters do exist out there, maybe I can even channel in and ask those characters for advice. Maybe I can embrace the concepts of the world that these characters live in and try to apply it to my own. That's how we begin to use fiction books tangibly and as a tool more than just an activation. But they are just an activation too. So when a fiction book is written with a lot of intention, the energy of that book changes. And having words written on a page is a very activated, very ancient magic thing. It's the way that we take someone's thoughts, someone's energy, and depending upon what it is, their spiritual creations, and we pass them through thousands, if not millions of people over multi-generations. A book is that powerful. It is tangible physical magic. And if you treat everything you read like tangible physical magic, the more you're going to get out of it. And that includes fiction, silly stories that we read to escape reality as well, because we're pulling in stuff from other realities. We're pulling in stuff from the author of the book. We're creating all sorts of magic there. And when a book is done well, you will leave that book being a different human. Your world will be changed, and that is the magic there. So, of course, it's going to be able to change your psychic abilities as well. Side note, if you have an idea for a fiction book that you would love to change the world, I do offer a writing program. It is called The Forgotten Storytellers. I'll put more information down in the comment description below, but we basically teach you how to activate and channel in all of your characters and your world and your magic to create that first draft of the book that you've been dreaming of to get it into the hands of readers. Pretty exciting, pretty cool. Lots more information. If you have questions on it, of course, ask me in the comments as well. And on that note, I do have to say thank you to my Intuitive Initiate patrons. Thank you, Intuitive Initiates. They are Alyssa, Carrie, Cheryl, Danny, Danielle, and Sarah. Thank you all so much. Just on a really short note, I had my first Q&A call with my patrons this past weekend. Was it last weekend? Time is weird. Very recently, we had our first Q&A call, and it's such a beautiful community experience to get to mentor people and help them expand their psychic abilities. And I have a whole bunch of different tiers in my Patreon to help you expand your psychic abilities as well. One of those tiers includes a comprehensive list of all of my book recommendations if you want to dive into that further. One of the tiers includes a activated monthly meditation activation. There's a discussion post tier where we have discussion posts. There's a bonus video. I mean, there's tons of different stuff. If you're really working on expanding your psychic abilities and you want to do that under my mentorship, all of that is located in my Patreon. I would love to have you in there. And of course, thank you so much for watching my content. It means the world to me. If you could like, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell ring-a-ling thing so that you get notified when I post, I would absolutely appreciate that. That would be incredible. I'm really trying to expand this particular platform. A lot of people have been finding me over here that had lost me on the other platforms due to the algorithm. So I'm so thankful for that. And thank you for letting me know that you're here. I'm so excited. But it really helps it in this world if you can like, comment, subscribe, all of those fun things so that I can actually reach people that are interested in books, magic, channeling, and history. You know, all the fun stuff. Housekeeping's done. Let's dive into it. So here are my top 5 book picks. It was really hard to narrow these down. I have so many different book recommendations based on what you're focusing in on. That kind of caters to what I'm actually recommending and how I'm recommending it. So if you've ever had a reading with me and you've been like, man, I'm focusing on this, and I give you like 2 or 3 fiction recommendations, they might not have made this list. That doesn't mean that they're not effective. And like I said, I do have a full list on my Patreon in one of the tiers if you want that. I do update it every time I read a new book that is worthy. But these are the best ones that I think will have the broadest reach as far as big spiritual concepts that will help the most people. And we're starting off with a book that I actually just recently finished. If you saw my last video about how I found the secret door when I was in Rome, I'll put a little thingy here so you can click on it if you want to actually watch that video if you haven't seen it. But if you saw that video, I did mention this book in that video, but this book is so impactful and important for people diving into their spiritual journey anyway, that I'm including it on the list. And again, these are in no particular order. Also, I'm not going to do any spoilers, so don't stress if you're like, I want to read these, but I don't want you to spoil them. These are not spoily reviews. No, they are not. Also, all the books that I am going to be recommending are high vibe in a lot of ways, unless I specify or like comment on that. But you can pretty much assume that I'm recommending very high vibration, very activated works in general to you. It's very rarely that I would ever recommend anything that's not. I just want to preface that if you've ever heard me talk about high vibe, so you know that this is what I mean, okay? The first book we're talking about today is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I love this book so much. So the little bit of what the concept of this book is, it is a historical fantasy, which you already know speaks to my little heart. Historical fantasy. It takes place literally at the turn of the century. It's multi-generational. It's beautiful, but it's mostly about one girl/woman's discovery of these hidden doors that lead to other worlds. And these doors cause change in our world every time that they're opened or something sneaks through, and her kind of tracing the stories back to that. It's honestly, the whole book is a love letter to stories in a lot of ways as well. The stories that bind us, the stories that open doors for us. It's told in a really unique perspective. There is the whole book within a book thing that I totally love. Do check trigger warnings, as with all of the books I'll recommend. Always check your trigger warnings. Online, you can do that. But it's absolutely incredible. It's especially incredible because it really helps you to understand the way that the universe actually works and functions, judging by how I've channeled it in, how I've been told that it works and functions, information from my guides, etc. I am planning a video on that in the future. as long as my patrons vote for it the way they voted for this one. I will do a video about the way that I channel in and see the universe as a whole. But this actually really mirrors what I have channeled, and is a really accessible way to understand how energy transmits between the different worlds and different realms on this layer of the cake that is our universe, because there are many layers to the universe cake. We're on this one, and there's a bunch of other realms that are also next door to us on that layer of the cake, and they sometimes intersect with each other, especially historically when the vibration of the planet was a lot higher. Again, this is a very big concept. Read the book. It'll feel a lot easier and more accessible than the way I'm explaining it right now. But historically, that is how it worked. It was a lot easier. The veil between worlds was a lot thinner. And these doors in this book represent sort of those veils and the ability for us to actually cross through and get information and get change and magic from other realms and dimensions, channeling all of that sort of stuff. It's also just a beautiful and significant reminder of the power of words. Like, the main character, January, resonated so deeply with my heart in a lot of ways. It's beautifully inclusive. It's such an inclusive work of writing, even though it is set in a historical time when things weren't very inclusive. It strives to be inclusive in a really fantastic way. Also, this is one of those books where you can very easily create your own meditation or visualization based off of this story in this world in order to step in and access some of the magic of, channeling in beings from different realms or channeling in energy from different realms or worlds, stuff that's next door to us or even above us, your guides. You can really create activation and visual for yourselves from this book, which I highly recommend doing. You're going to get that naturally via reading it. That's how reading fiction books work. You're going to download that anyway. But if you want to take it a step further, this is a great book to take a step further. And it's one of those books that the second you finish it, you're going to want to restart it. And it kind of lends itself to that, which is really cool. You want to restart it the moment you're done. But it helps you to see just the magic in the ordinary, follow synchronicities, follow stories. Anyway, it's incredible. It's going to help you a lot if you want to channel in and work with beings from other realms, dimensions, next door places to us. Also, though, and I do just want to say this because it would have been a absolute DNF, do not finish, if I didn't Google this. So I'm just going to give you this information now in case you're like me. The dog is fine. The dog is fine. The dog is fine. The dog is okay. That's all I'm going to say on that. But just know I would not have recommended it to you if the dog was not fine. The dog is fine. Okay? That's the only spoiler you get. Hopefully that puts your mind at rest. So that is book number 1. It's so hard to call it number 1 because genuinely these do not have an order in my head. I'm not like, this is my first favorite and second favorite. I just put them down because that's what came to me. So don't do that to yourself because these are all fantastic. Because book number 2 is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. This is actually not my favorite book by this author, but for activating your psychic abilities, specifically understanding how death works, this book will help you understand how death works and what happens once someone passes. So the idea is when a soul passes, they go to someone who helps them cope with the fact that they have passed. And in this particular case, the soul that passes ends up in a tea shop. And it is so freaking cute. It's a Killian, and it just gives me the warms and fuzzies. Like, all the feels come in. Like, it's such a feely one. I will say though, if you are someone who really would like to speak to ghosts, this book's going to help a lot with that. If you're someone who would really like to work on mediumship, like channeling in channeling in past loved ones, people who lived in the ancient past, people who have passed on already, and talking to them. If you're doing ancestor work, this is going to be a wonderful book for helping you activate all of those skills or grow and further develop those skills. I think the way that the author really explains and makes the character process death, but also helps the character understand what happens to everyone when they pass. And there's some really kind of tough situations and tough passings that the character has to kind of like witness. It's really cool. It's really magical. Also, the kind of like godlike character in the book, I think, is done really, really well also. It's very, very neat energy, and it's incredibly activating. And if you are someone who is working on developing those skills, this is going to take a lot of the fear out of it. Because when you're someone who's working on talking to ghosts or mediumship, anything like that, there is a level of fear that tends to come up with that because our society has messed us up in that capacity. Go our society. This is going to help release a lot of that and activate you through a lot of that fear to make it more comfortable and make it more tangible and make it more sweet. sweetness, compassion, love is like the core tenet of this book. Also, my favorite book by TJ Klune is House in the Cerulean Sea. If you are scared of magical stuff, if you'd like to do some major inner child healing, read that book. Honorable mention, I guess, but definitely read that book as well. I've recommended it to everyone I know, and everyone I know has recommended it to everyone else they know. It's so good, and it's so it's just a beautiful, lovely story that will help with some like inner child peacemaking and comforting, and also help you again overcome some fears of magical things that you don't understand. Both of these books are great for that, but Under the Whispering Door specifically with the ghosty stuff is just mwah, top notch. Also, it's a really easy read. Like, you'll get through it pretty quick. The next book I would recommend, this is specifically for those of you who are really working on your relationship with your guides, or if you have a lot of clairaudience or want to wake up some clairaudience, clairvoyance, so clear sight and clear hearing. I do have a video explaining a little bit more about those and how to connect with your guides using those senses. But this book will help a lot, and that book is Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. I love Margaret Rogerson. I really, really do. I really like her writing style. Some people really like it. Some people don't like it as much. I think it does a really good job. That being said, I've read every book she's written, and Vespertine is the best. Vespertine is by far the best, at least in my opinion. I love the world that's crafted there, and I love the relationship between the main character and the spirit that's stuck in her head. Big, scary spirit stuck in her head. It's pretty intense. So basically the core premise of this book is there is a nun, and nun does not mean what we think it means. This is a totally different world. It's a fantasy world for sure. And this nun ends up accidentally stuck with the spirit of an evil, basically demon sort of creature stuck in her head. And most of the book is their dialogue as they figure out how to like help the world together. And it's really, really cute. If you want to understand what it's like when I talk to my guides all day long, read this book. And that's what it will help activate for you. Absolutely. What I really think this book will do well for you, especially if you're working on developing a relationship with your spirit guides, it gives you something to base it off of. That like, even especially if you're listening to the audiobook, you get to like hear and almost like participate in. That's the conversation level you're going with your guides. That's going to be the easiest for you to talk to your guides in sort of the same way that Vespertine represents. Basically, Artemisia, the main character, talks to the Revenant. Absolutely is very flowy, very communicative. It also, and this is something that I really loved about it, and this is something that stuck with me about this book after I finished reading it, it helps you understand that guides are whole beings themselves. They're having their own life. They're having their own experience connected to yours, sure, but they're having a whole existence. And us down here who get caught up in our own existence, it even happens to me, it's just a thing. We all get caught up in our own existence. It's hard for us to keep that in perspective sometimes. Like, unless you're like Brandon Sanderson, who has 10,000 characters living in his head all the time and knows all their personalities so intimately. I swear to God, he is the strongest author channel I have ever freaking seen. The personalities that are in his characters, I'm like, oh, you channeled that one in. Hot damn. Anyway, side note. We genuinely forget, or we don't understand or conceptualize how much of a life they are still living. And that goes for like ghosts and guides and even past loved ones up wherever they are doing whatever they're doing. All of that kind of comes in. But this book really represents it in a tangible way that, you know, will help you understand. If you have a guide that doesn't want to help you with a certain thing, why maybe they don't want to help you with that certain thing, where other guides come in to supplement. It also will just give you some techniques and sort of things to come and talk to your guides with, the way that Vespertine kind of, I keep calling her Vespertine. Her name's Artemisia. It's a whole thing. Kind of thinks around her problems to get to actually speak to the Revenant in a way where that's actually going to benefit her. It's something very similar that you can do for yourself with your own psychic abilities and kind of thinking around those problems as well. And for any of us who have religious trauma, this book helps heal it. It is a really cool honoring and criticizing statement on religion. Like, it criticizes all of the right parts, it honors some of the cool parts. It doesn't fully disparage religion and like kick it and throw it into the dust, as I've seen a lot of other books do. It's like, hey, there are pieces of this that have made us who we are. Let's honor those, while also understanding that, hey, a lot of this is not healthy. It's really good on an energetic level to help you heal and release that. If that's something you're struggling with, you're going to find a lot of solace in this book and a lot of healing in this book. It's really nice and comfortable in that way. It is currently a standalone. Most of the books I am recommending are actually all standalones. Actually, I don't think I'm recommending any series. Oh, no, one. I have one series on here. Just had to double check. But it is currently a standalone, though she has said she might write more. There is space to write more, but you're not going to be unsatisfied by the first book, which will be enough to help activate kind of that energy for you. Moving right along, we have one of my favorite reads in such a long time, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. If you're a listener of the podcast, you've heard me talk about this book before. I don't care. I'm saying more stuff about it now. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies is such a powerful, wonderful, activated, energy happy book. Like, even when I hold it in my hands, which, by the way, and this is a super book nerd thing, the cover of this book doesn't have a dust jacket. She's naked. She's a naked book, and I love it so much. Not even special edition, just like genuinely bought it at the bookstore, naked, and it just it feels so lovely. I love the energy of that. Anyway, Emily Wilde is the story of a woman. Again, this is in, like, I think the turn of the century time. It doesn't actually say, because it is a fantasy, but it is right kind of in that space. And she is a scholar, and she is traveling all over Europe to write the account of all the different types of fairies that live on the continent into an encyclopedia. Her name is Emily Wilde. Hilarity ensues. It's pretty funny because she goes to the farthest north cold little island to investigate their fairies in a way no one has ever done before. And she comes completely unprepared for the winter. And being a mountain person, it's hilarious. It's honestly hilarious, but it is so sweet. It's so activating. And it is a perfect book for those of you who either want to do elemental work, working with energies, especially energies of nature, to understand how they flow. Or again, if you're working with fairies or different entities that are specifically of nature. Now, I'm not necessarily saying go work with fairies. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if this is something you're naturally inclined towards and you're something you're really drawn towards, this book is going to help a lot. But even if it's not fairies, if it's just, you want to be able to talk to rivers or even different objects, or just understand how the natural world comes together in a new, deeply more profound way, this book is going to help activate that. Like, it's going to genuinely help you activate it. Not to mention, you're going to love the story. Also, animal communication. If you are someone who wants to work on animal communication, I highly recommend you read Emily Wilde. I just realized I didn't tell you who the book was by. It's by an author named Heather Fawcett. It is going to be a series. She just announced and released the cover for the next one that will be coming out in January 2024, which I am so excited for and pre-ordered immediately. It's also a really wonderful audiobook if you're someone who reads with audiobooks, which is I do more often than not. This is going to be one that's great to listen to. But that is what it really activates. It also helps you look small. It helps you see synchronicities. It helps you notice patterns, which is how your guides communicate anyway. This book activates that on a very, very deep level. For those of you who really want to work with the beings around you, I cannot recommend this book enough. It's so good. Also, the fairies really love when I recommend this book. If you haven't seen, I can tell the story of how the fairies have been impacting me since recommending this book first time. It's pretty wild. I'm looking at my plant over here because stuff went down. But anyway, super cool energy of this book. That was the fourth one. Fifth book we are going to talk about. Okay, this one's super fun because I have had people ask me before, like, all right, I really want to develop my psychic abilities, but I really like using tools. I really like doing spell work. I like doing those types of things. This is the book I have to recommend if you're someone who likes those types of things. And it is The Secret Society of Irregular The Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sengu Mandana. And I hope I am saying their name right because I don't know if I am or not, but I'm going with it. This book has the most accessible description of magic that I have found in a book in a really long time. It's again kind of a magical realism. It's again a standalone. It has some romance elements, which I really enjoy. But basically it is about a woman who is a witch, and there is a issue with witches coming in contact with one another ever. So it's a very lonely experience. just like most of spirituality, very on point. But she kind of accidentally falls into a space where she's mentoring 3 young witches. It's very found family. She has to kind of cope and understand her own life and her own journey and how isolated she was in order to help these little girls not have that same experience. It's beautiful. It's magical. The way they describe magic in this book is the exact way I see it with my physical eyes. So one of the things that I do with my psychic, I can see energy with my physical eyes. Everything has a different layer over it for me than it does for everybody else, I guess. I say I guess because I've never seen differently. To me, it's just the energy that's normal. I've been told, though, that other people can't see that. So I can see the energy of things. And this describes the way the energy of magic kind of looks and feels and is around us actively as a living, breathing thing that we have access to, because nothing's impossible. We just need to try and just need to lean in on that. So it's really awesome there. If you're someone who wants to do aligned spell work, if you want someone who wants to work with sigils or even runes or oracle cards, tarot, spell books, grimoires, stuff like that, this is going to be a really activating and aligned book for you. Also, if you were able to connect with your psychic abilities as a child, if that was something that came very naturally to you and you either got scared and shut them down or you shut them down for some other reason, as you got older, they just kind of turned off, this book is going to absolutely heal your little child soul. It's also a great one to read around Christmas time. Just gonna kind of throw that in there for you as well. But this, I highly recommend it for those of you who are looking for that kind of validation of your own magic and your own abilities. I think it's going to be really helpful for you. If you know me at all, there's no possible way I can only list out 5 books. So I do have 3 honorable mentions that I'm just going to touch on very fast before I round out this video that is longer than I intended. Honorable mention number 1 is the Fable series by Adrienne Young. The reason this is an honorable mention is it's a little bit niche, I'm not going to lie, but if you are someone who feels a lot of resonance with crystals and you want to understand how to communicate energetically with crystals, rocks, gems, if this is you, this is the book. It's a duology, so there's 2 books in the series plus a couple spin-off books. All of them are fabulous. They're all fantastic. Fable is one of the characters I resonate more strongly with than any other character out there, pretty much. She's one of my hard, oh, I'm definitely like her sort of characters. Also, if you've got daddy issues, this is a good book for you. Okay? And if you love to swim, I love to swim, this is a good book for you as well. It's kind of like a twist on piracy in a fantasy world, but there's crystal communication and treasure hunting and diving and it's so good. Okay, so Fable by Adrienne Young, that is my first kind of honorable mention. Second honorable mention is Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. This book is not for everyone, and I'm saying that openly right now, but I will fully with my whole chest say that this book changed my life on such a deep level I couldn't not include it. It fully cured my depression. This past December, I was in a very bad mental health space, and I read this book and it drastically changed the trajectory of my life, and I can concretely say that. It meant so much to me that I actually reached out to the author and just told them how much it meant to me, which I had never done before, but I needed them to know how impactful their work was, because it's so important to me. And even now when I'm having anxiety, I will think of this book and it will help me calm down. So if you're someone who struggles with identity, this is a great book for you. If you're someone who just wants to believe that everything can find an answer and find a place, this is a great book for you. The premise, because I need to share what the premise of this is because it's going to make very little sense when you read the back. You're like, I guess I'll read this. A transgender runaway musical prodigy, a demon, and an alien walk into a donut shop. That's the premise of this book. It's just fucking phenomenal. I love it so much. I can't even express it. Now, for those of you who really love my channeled history series, who want to lean into more channeled history to talking to the people of the past, this is a recommendation I want to give, but again, honorable mention because I don't think it's one of the best, but I think it's something that if you're really into that specific thing is a good idea. The reason again, it's also honorable mention, I don't think necessarily these books are written in the most high vibe way, but if you want to get into this world of channeling history, these are going to be a wonderful gateway book for you. And that's most of the Robert Langdon series by Dan Brown. Not all, but most. I highly recommend The Lost Symbol. I also recommend Angels and Demons and also Inferno. Those are my favorite of that, but it'll really draw you into history isn't what we make it. Let's channel into that and it'll help activate those things. Ta-da! that is the top 5 book recommendations for helping you on your psychic awakening and exploration journey. I am absolutely awful at ending these videos, but if you could like, subscribe, hit the notification button, that would mean the world to me. Also, I'll include all my Patreon and other information below. If you have other book recommendations for me, comment those below too. I'm always open for them. Yeah, lean in. Remember, magic is everywhere and you're magical as fuck. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye-bye.